In the Impact segment tonight, if President Hosni Mubarak resigns or is removed, who's going to take his place? Well, most experts predict that the military will temporarily fill the vacuum, which could be a stabilizing force and also good for America and our allies. But a more ominous scenario would be if the radical jihadist group, the Muslim Brotherhood, were to have a major say in determining Egypt's future. So what happens then? Joining us now from L.A. is Omar Zaki, who is a member of the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Omar, good to see you. Look, there's a variety of opinions out there about where we're going here in Egypt. And commentators today are at odds with each other about what role the Muslim Brotherhood, if any, would have in a new Egypt after Mubarak. What's your take?
Well, I have to tell you, I have been on the phone all week talking to relatives and friends in Egypt, and I asked them this question about the Muslim Brotherhood, and it doesn't appear that, from their perspective, that they are playing any sort of leadership role or any sort of prominent role in this movement whatsoever. So I don't really sense that Muslim Brotherhood is an issue that we really should even be concerned about at this point.
Well, the Muslim Brotherhood would beg to differ, obviously. Its top leadership and some of its big spokesmen are giving media interviews saying we should consider this a time to start planning war against Israel. Other Muslim Brotherhood members are seeing this as an opportunity to call for the Suez Canal to be shut down. And indeed, that's a cause for concern to a lot of people. And they obviously do have a presence on the ground in the protests. How much sway they have, that remains to be seen. But do you agree that if they do have a voice, that would be a disturbing thing for Egypt?
Well, I think really what the main issue is what the Egyptian people want to do at this point. And what this is really all about is about freedom. It's about democracy. It's not about the Muslim Brotherhood or what they want. It's about what the Egyptian people want. It's about liberating people. It's about giving people choice, democracy, freedom.
But do you think the Muslim Brotherhood is about liberating people? I mean, let me just read the creed of the Muslim Brotherhood. God is our objective, the Quran is our law, the Prophet is our leader, jihad is our way, and death for the sake of Allah is the highest of our aspirations. That is the Muslim Brotherhood creed, and I don't have to remind you, Omar, that back in 2009, in the summer of 2009, a federal district court judge found that your organization, CAIR, had inextricable links to Hamas, to the Islamic Society of North America, and Hamas obviously being a Muslim Brotherhood front group. And I think it was your Dallas chapter head was also named in that case against the Holy Land Foundation, all tied together. So your organization has had some ties to Hamas, according to federal court judge, and Hamas, obviously, we know the ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. So that's the history, is it not?
Laura, thanks for the reminder. I guess you haven't really been keeping up with times, but courts have recently been saying that we've had no linkage and no association with those organizations whatsoever. But the fact of the matter is, again, this is a movement by the Egyptian people. This is a movement for freedom. It's a movement for justice. It's something that the American people should be absolutely proud to see, that democracy needs to flourish in the Middle East. It needs to flourish in these Muslim countries.
Well,
with respect to the Muslim,
I hear you, but my question to you initially, and the federal court ruling in Texas stands, and the findings of that federal judge stands. Other people may be saying other things. But the fact of the matter is, we have members of the Muslim Brotherhood who have made it clear that they would absolutely relinquish any responsibility that stemmed from the Camp David Accords. That's a fact. That's reported in every major news organization today. They want to do away with the Camp David Accords. Would that be to your organization's liking? Would you believe that would be ultimately good for the Middle East?
I think what ultimately would be good for the Middle East is to allow the people of Egypt to be able to speak. I mean, Laura, there is probably a couple of dozen different political parties within Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood has a small percentage of that interest. Now, it is really up to the Egyptian people what they seek. But again, this is not about Israel. It is not about those accords. It is not about the Muslim Brotherhood. This is a secular movement. This is a populist movement that is directed towards a direction of peace and justice and freedom. And what we've seen, this extraordinary current events in the last couple of days, it should be disturbing to most Americans to see really the true face of the Mubarak administration.
Well, I think we're seeing the true face of a lot of things lately. We're seeing the true face of Islamism, which subjugates the rights of Coptic Christians, which calls for the destruction of the state of Israel. and which has no problem with Iran becoming a full-fledged member of the nuclear family. And I'll ask you again, would you be bothered by any of those things happening, either by the Muslim Brotherhood having a major say at the table? And if you do, that's fine. But I think we need to know where CAIR is on that particular fact, regardless of what the Egyptian people ultimately decide down the road, because it's going to be a long time before there's a real fair election with a fair judiciary and a free press there. That's going to happen down the road, not anytime soon.
Absolutely. And what we want to see is we want to make sure that the people of Egypt are heard. I certainly, and the organization CAIR, would certainly are not going to sit back and allow any faction, Muslim Brotherhood or otherwise, to be able to come in and put a totalitarian society or another aggressive society towards the Egyptian people as we've seen the last 30 years. There are Coptics in Egypt, there are Muslims in Egypt, there are other factions in Egypt. All people of Egypt need to be respected. There needs to be a system of government that allows for all of those individuals to be able to flourish, to be able to speak freely, to be able to express themselves as they see fit.
Do you think the Muslim Brotherhood, if it had its way, would allow for any of those things, Omar?
Laura, I can't speak for the Muslim Brotherhood. I am not their representative. Well, you're supposed to be an expert on this whole area. I mean, but aren't you an expert in Islamic affairs? I mean, it's a pretty important group, and it's a pretty important organization worldwide. 70 affiliates or 70 countries, and obviously has an important role in funding jihadist efforts around the world. But you don't have any view on whether they would be good to have at the table. No view. Nancy, your former guest said it best. They are a red herring. This is not about the Muslim Brotherhood. This is about democracy in Egypt, and this is what we're happy to see happen.
All right, Omar, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.